Hello and welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute-a-day podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse, recorded here in the dining room of the Bible Bistro, located in Sharonville, Ohio. Hey there, friend. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro. Listen, if you get a chance, why don't you cruise on over or surf on over to my-dailydose.com. That's the webpage for the Bible Bistro. And there I have compiled and archived lots of good biblically spiritual material. There are podcasts and there are articles and case studies and poetry and books and music, you name it, it's there. So check it all out there at my-dailydose.com for your surfing pleasure. Today we're looking at verses 13 and 14 here in Psalm 35. I don't know if I said this earlier in the week, but this first half of the psalm is my translation. Now, next week, just a little housekeeping, as we go on into the second half of Psalm 35, I have depended upon the King James translation, so it's not my own, but this has been my own. I've called this a prayer for the soul. David is praying for his soul, and he talks about the soul several times. We're going to see it again today. And it's afflicted, it's under persecution, it needs salvation, and so forth. So we've enjoyed this because I think we understand it. We get it. We know when the soul is troubled because we feel it. You know, the soulish part of us feels so many things. So David knows very acutely the trouble that he's in because it is a soulish trouble. Yesterday we looked at how they repaid him. They repaid him evil instead of good, to the bereavement of my soul. They repaid me with evil instead of good, to the bereavement of my soul. And then verse 13, we have a contrast created. But I, when they became sick, my clothing was sackcloth. I afflicted my soul with fasting. And my prayer returned unto my bosom. As a neighbor, as a brother to me, I caused myself to walk as one who mourns for a mother, bowing down in mourning. So he's afflicted himself. Notice that it says, they became sick, that is, those who repaid him evil instead of good. But he didn't do that. Why is that? Because the righteous man doesn't do that. The righteous man does not repay evil for good. He doesn't do that. Now, the righteous man repays good for good. He repays evil with good. And so even though they've treated him evilly in a wicked manner, he says, no, when they became sick, here's what I did. I put on sackcloth, that's number 1, there in verse 13. I fasted, that's number 2. And thirdly, he prayed. My prayer returned unto my bosom. So he's putting on sackcloth, he's afflicting his soul with fasting, and he's praying. Why? Because they became sick. And he doesn't want that. Notice he goes on to explain that there in verse 14. As a neighbor, as a brother to me, I caused myself to walk as one who mourns for a mother. So he considers the one who returns evil instead of good as a brother, as a neighbor. Now, when we use that word neighbor, we immediately remember what our Savior taught us about the neighbor, right? Who is my neighbor? Jesus said, he gave the story of the Good Samaritan. This is the neighbor. The one who helped him was neighbor. So everyone is a neighbor to us. So as a neighbor, we have a responsibility to all of those about us to behave in this way, to mourn for them, to pray for them, to fast for them, to put sackcloth on, to afflict ourselves physically for them. So there's physical affliction, soulish affliction, and prayer. He mourns for them as one who mourns for a mother, bowing down in mourning. So David makes very clear this is how he repaid them. They repaid him evil for the good. He repaid them good for their evil. And this is exactly how we're to walk. We don't take it upon ourselves to take vengeance on others. That's not our job. That's the Lord's job. We'll just leave that in his hand, and we'll walk according to Christ's command. How's that? Now, next week, we'll look at Psalm 35. We'll pick up there in verse 15, and notice that David becomes sick, and let's see how they repay him. Join me then here on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. For more fresh and delicious Bible studies, podcasts, books, and more, check out the Bible Bistro online and on YouTube. Join me again next time for Daily Dose Radio.